The Zen Beast's roar echoes across the barren landscape of Zen 9 as Donald Hall steps off the transport shuttle. The human xenobiologist surveys the alien world, his eyes drawn to the reinforced perimeter of the Eliani research outpost. He's here to tame the untamable, to succeed where an advanced alien species has failed for decades. Uma, a willowy Eliani scientist, approaches Donald. Her large almond-shaped eyes betray a mix of hope and skepticism. "Welcome to Zen 9, Dr. Hall. We're grateful for your assistance, though I must admit we're unsure what a human can accomplish that our most brilliant minds could not." Donald nods, understanding their doubt. "Sometimes a fresh perspective is all that's needed. Can you brief me on the situation?" Uma leads him to a view screen overlooking the Zen Beast habitat. The creature prowls the enclosure, its massive form a testament to Ihuri's evolutionary perfection. 6 muscular legs support a body covered in iridescent scales. A cluster of eyes surrounds a maw filled with razor-sharp teeth. "The Zen Beast has thwarted all our attempts at control," Uma explains. "It's resistant to our most potent tranquilizers. Physical restraints prove futile against its strength and adaptability. Our colonization efforts are at a standstill due to this apex predator." Donald listens intently, his mind already formulating a plan. "I'd like to enter the habitat," he states, causing Uma to step back in shock. "That's suicide," she exclaims. "The Zen Beast would tear you apart in seconds." Donald pulls out a high-calorie nutrient bar from his pack. "Not if we change the game. I propose using Earth animal training techniques. No weapons, no restraints, just these." Uma's expression shifts from disbelief to curiosity. "You intend to feed it treats?" "Exactly," Donald confirms. "It's a radical approach, but it might be our last shot before you abandon the planet." After heated discussions with the Eliani Council, Donald receives grudging permission. He stands at the habitat's entrance, armed only with nutrient bars and his wits. Uma watches anxiously as the airlock cycles open. The Zen Beast's attention snaps to Donald the moment he enters. Its low growl vibrates through the air as it stalks towards him. Donald's heart races, but he maintains his composure. With practiced precision, he tosses a nutrient bar near the creature. The Zen Beast pauses, its cluster of eyes focusing on the unexpected offering. It sniffs cautiously before consuming the treat in one swift motion. Donald repeats the process, each time reducing the distance between himself and the predator. Hours pass. The Eliani observe in stunned silence as the Zen Beast's aggression gradually diminishes. Donald's movements become bolder, more confident. Finally, he achieves the unthinkable, standing mere feet from the now docile Zen Beast, offering a treat from his outstretched hand. As Donald exits the enclosure, triumphant, Uma rushes to him. Overwhelmed by his bravery and skill, she impulsively embraces him, breaking long-held Eliani social norms. The unexpected contact sends a jolt through both of them, igniting a spark of connection that transcends their species' differences. Donald's success marks a turning point. Not only has he tamed the untamable, but he's also opened the door to deeper human-Eliani relations. As Uma gazes at him with newfound admiration, it's clear that the future of Zen 9, and perhaps the galaxy, has been irrevocably changed by one human's daring approach to an alien apex predator. The days following Donald's groundbreaking success with the Zen Beast were a whirlwind of activity at the Eliani research outpost. News of his achievement spread rapidly, transforming the once skeptical atmosphere into one of excitement and possibility. The outpost director, a male Eliani named Zorn, recognized the potential of Donald's methods and swiftly authorized him to continue his work with the Zen Beast. "Dr. Hall," Zorn announced during a briefing, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with anticipation, "your innovative approach has opened new doors for us. I'm assigning Uma as your permanent research partner. Together, you'll spearhead our efforts to understand and coexist with the Zen Beast." Donald nodded, stealing a glance at Uma, who stood nearby. Her willowy form seemed to radiate a newfound energy, and he couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement at the prospect of working closely with her. As they settled into their new routine, Donald and Uma spent long hours in the observation deck, meticulously monitoring the Zen beast's behavior. The creature's iridescent scales shimmered under the artificial lights as it moved about its enclosure, now significantly calmer than before. "Look at how it's approaching the feeding station," Uma pointed out, leaning in close to Donald. Her arm brushed against his, sending a subtle shiver through him. "It's displaying none of the aggression we saw previously." Donald nodded, acutely aware of Uma's proximity. "Yes, it's remarkable how quickly it's adapting to the new dynamic. We should document these changes in detail." As they worked, the physical contact between them increased. Uma would often reach across Donald to adjust a control or gesture towards a particular readout, her slender fingers grazing his arm or shoulder. Each touch seemed to linger a moment longer than necessary, charging the air between them with unspoken tension. Meanwhile, Donald's success with the Zen beast prompted Earth to send a small team of human handlers to assist in expanding the taming process. The Eleni watched in awe as these newcomers, under Donald's guidance, began to make progress with other Zen beasts. One evening, after a particularly successful training session, Donald and Uma found themselves alone in the dining hall. Uma had taken it upon herself to introduce Donald to Eliani cuisine, a task she approached with enthusiasm. "You must try this," she said, holding up a vibrant, star-shaped fruit. "It's called a zephyr bloom. It's quite rare, even on Zen 9. Before Donald could respond, Uma brought the fruit to his lips. He hesitated for a moment, then took a bite. The fruit's sweet, tangy flavor exploded on his tongue. "It's delicious," he said, licking his lips. Uma's eyes widened, and she quickly looked away, a faint blue tinge coloring her cheeks. Donald realized belatedly that in Eliani culture, feeding someone by hand was an intimate gesture. The awkward moment passed as they continued their meal, but the underlying tension remained. Their conversations began to extend beyond work, delving into personal histories and dreams for the future. Donald found himself captivated by Uma's perspective on the universe, so alien yet in many ways familiar. As the days progressed, the success of the Zen Beast Taming Project led to an increased human presence on Zen 9. A small colony was established near the Eliani outpost, with Donald serving as the liaison between the two species. This new development brought its own set of challenges as cultural differences became more apparent. During a joint human-Eliani expedition into unexplored territory, Donald and Uma made a startling discovery. Hidden behind a ridge of crystalline formations, they found a lush valley teeming with a new subspecies of Zen beast. These creatures were larger, more aggressive, and seemed to possess an even higher level of intelligence than their counterparts. Donald's eyes lit up with excitement. "This is incredible. Think of what we could learn from these new beasts. I believe we can adapt our taming techniques to work with them as well." Uma, however, didn't share his enthusiasm. Her large eyes were filled with concern as she watched the new Zen beasts prowling the valley floor. "Donald, these creatures are far more dangerous than anything we've encountered. It's too risky to attempt taming them." "But that's exactly why we need to try," Donald argued. "If we can succeed here, it will open up even more of Zen 9 for safe exploration and colonization. It's an opportunity to prove humanity's worth to the Eliani on an even greater scale." Their disagreement escalated into their first major argument, exposing the underlying tensions in their relationship. Cultural differences that had seemed minor before now loomed large between them. "You humans always rush in, thinking you can control everything," Uma exclaimed, her usually calm demeanor cracking. "You don't understand the dangers of this world as we do." Donald's eyes sharp. "That may be true, but our rushing in has accomplished more in weeks than your cautious approach has in years. I'm going through with this, Uma, with or without your support." As Donald prepared to enter the valley, Uma watched from a safe distance, her heart heavy with worry. The new Zen beasts circled warily as Donald approached, their aggressive postures a clear warning. His initial attempts at pacification seemed to have little effect, and for a heart-stopping moment, it appeared the situation might spiral out of control. Just as Uma was about to call for an emergency extraction, Donald made a breakthrough. Combining a series of low whistles with sweeping arm gestures, he managed to catch the attention of the lead beast. The creature's multiple eyes focused intently on Donald, its aggressive stance slowly relaxing. Uma held her breath as she watched Donald work his way closer to the beast, maintaining the rhythmic sounds and movements. Gradually, the other Zen beasts in the pack began to mirror their leader's calmer demeanor. As Donald emerged from the valley, exhausted but triumphant, Uma felt a surge of emotion she could no longer contain. Without a thought for who might be watching, she rushed forward and threw her arms around him, pressing her lithe form against his sturdy frame. "You did it," she whispered, her voice thick with relief and something more. "You incredible, foolish human." Donald returned the embrace, holding Uma close, as the reality of his achievement sank in. Their public display of affection drew curious glances from both humans and Eleni present, marking a visible shift in the dynamics between the two species. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with the tamed Zen beast behind them and the mixed group of observers before them, it was clear that a new chapter had begun, not just for Donald and Uma, but for human-Eliani relations on Zen 9. The path ahead was uncharted, filled with both promise and peril, as two worlds continued their delicate dance of integration. As two worlds continued their delicate dance of cooperation and conflict, Donald and Uma found themselves at the center of a rapidly evolving situation. The success of their Zen beast taming efforts had brought humans and Eleni closer than ever before, but it had also exposed underlying tensions between the two species. In the days following their breakthrough with the new subspecies of Zen beasts, Donald and Uma spent increasing amounts of time together. Their shared experiences had forged a bond that transcended their biological differences. Late one evening, as they reviewed data from their latest expedition, Uma's hand lingered on Donald's arm. "Donald," she said softly, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the dim light of the research station, "I find myself drawn to you in ways I don't fully understand." Donald's breath caught in his throat. He turned to face her, acutely aware of the warmth of her touch. "Uma, I feel the same way." "Same." Their faces inched closer, the air between them charged with unspoken desire. Just as their lips were about to meet, a harsh buzzing sound filled the room. Uma jerked back, startled by the interruption. Donald quickly accessed the communication panel. Zorn's urgent voice filled the air. "Dr. Hall, Uma, report to the command center immediately. We have a critical situation." Exchanging worried glances, Donald and Uma hurried to the command center. Zorn's usually composed features were etched with concern as he briefed them on the unfolding crisis. "A group of untamed Zen beasts has breached our perimeter defenses," Zorn explained, gesturing to a holographic display of the area. "They're heading straight for the human colony." Donald's mind raced with possibilities. How did they get through the defenses? "Unknown at this time," Zorn replied. "Our priority is containing the threat before they reach the colonists." Without hesitation, Donald sprang into action. "I'll gather my team and our equipment. We'll intercept the Zen beasts before they reach the colony." Uma stepped forward. "I'm coming with you." Donald opened his mouth to protest, but the drive in Uma's eyes silenced him. He nodded, acknowledging her decision. As they rushed to prepare, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Donald's team of human handlers assembled quickly, their faces grim but resolute. Equipment was loaded onto hovering transport platforms, and within minutes they were racing towards the human colony. The scene that greeted them was one of chaos. Zen beasts, their iridescent scales gleaming in the planet's eerie twilight, rampaged through the outskirts of the colony. Colonists fled in panic, their screams piercing the air. Damaged buildings smoked and sparked, testament to the creature's destructive power. Donald's team spread out, each handler targeting a different Zen beast. Uma coordinated with the Eliani security forces, ensuring they provided support without interfering with the delicate taming process. As Donald approached the largest Zen beast, a massive specimen with wickedly curved claws, he noticed something odd about its behavior. The creature's movements seemed more erratic than usual, its multiple eyes darting about wildly. "Uma!" Donald called out, his voice barely audible above the commotion. "Something's not right. These Zen beasts seem agitated, more than they should be." Uma nodded, her keen senses picking up on the same irregularities. "You're right. It's almost as if they were provoked." Despite the unusual circumstances, Donald pressed on with the taming process. He began the series of low whistles and sweeping arm gestures that had proven effective in the past. The Zen beast's attention snapped to him, its aggressive stance slowly relaxing. Around him, Donald's team made similar progress with the other creatures. Uma's coordination with the Eliani forces ensured a smooth operation, preventing any accidental interference that could undo their work. As the last Zen beast was brought under control, Donald and Uma exchanged a look of relief tinged with suspicion. The timing of this attack, coupled with the strange behavior of the creatures, raised troubling questions. "We need to investigate the perimeter breach," Donald said, wiping sweat from his brow. Uma agreed, and they made their way to the site where the Zen beasts had broken through. As they examined the damaged force field emitters, Uma's sharp eyes caught something out of place. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a small device attached to one of the emitters. "This isn't part of the standard defense system." Donald leaned in for a closer look. The device was clearly of Eliani manufacture, its sleek design unmistakable. "Someone sabotaged the defenses," he said grimly. "This attack was no accident." Uma's expression hardened. "Krell," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's been vocal about his opposition to human presence on Zen 9. This must be his doing." Donald nodded, the pieces falling into place. "We need proof before we can take this to Zorn. If we're right about this, the consequences could be severe for both our peoples." Uma's eyes met Donald's, a silent understanding passing between them. "We'll have to investigate covertly," she said. "Krell's base of operations is in a remote area of the Eliani settlement. If we can find evidence there—" Donald finished her thought. "We could expose the plot and prevent further attacks." He paused, considering the risks. "It'll be dangerous. Are you sure you want to do this?" Uma's hand found Donald's, her grip firm and reassuring. "We're in this together, Donald. Whatever comes next, we face it as one." As they began planning their covert mission, the gravity of the situation burdened immensely upon them. The fragile peace between humans and Eliani hung in the balance, and their actions in the coming hours could determine the fate of both species on Zen 9. With persistence in their hearts and trust in each other, Donald and Uma prepared to uncover the truth behind the Zen beast attack, knowing that the challenges ahead would test not only their skills, but also the depths of their growing bond. Relationship. Gathering their evidence, they rushed back to the main outpost, their hearts pounding with the urgency of their discovery. Upon arrival, Donald and Uma immediately requested an audience with Zorn and the human colony leadership. The gravity of their expressions spoke volumes as they entered the conference room, where tense faces awaited their report. "We have uncovered evidence of sabotage," Donald announced, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. He placed the recovered device on the table, its alien design gleaming under the harsh lights. Uma stepped forward, her multifaceted eyes scanning the room. "This device was used to disable our perimeter defenses, allowing the Zen beast to breach our security. We have reason to believe Krell is behind this attack." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Zorn's typically stoic demeanor cracked, his facial tentacles writhing in agitation. "These are serious allegations. What proof do you have?" Donald activated a holographic display, showing detailed scans of the sabotage device. "The technology is unmistakably Eliani, and we've traced its manufacturing signature to a facility under Krell's jurisdiction." As Donald and Uma presented their findings, the room erupted into a cacophony of voices. Human colonists demanded immediate action, while Eliani officials called for caution and further investigation. Zorn raised a hand, silencing the commotion. "We must act swiftly but judiciously," Zorn declared. "I will order Krell's immediate arrest and a full investigation into his supporters." The revelation sent shockwaves through both human and Eliani communities. As news spread, Donald and Uma found themselves thrust into the spotlight, hailed as heroes who had saved the fragile alliance between their species. In the days that followed, the political landscape of Zen 9 shifted dramatically. Krell's arrest and the subsequent investigation uncovered a network of conspirators, leading to a purge of extremist elements within the Eliani government. The human colonists, initially shaken by the attack, rallied around Donald and Uma as symbols of interspecies cooperation. As the dust settled, Donald and Uma found themselves at the center of a new paradigm. Their relationship, once a private matter, became a subject of public fascination and scrutiny. They were invited to speak at joint human-Eliani forums, their every interaction analyzed and discussed. One evening, as they retreated to the privacy of Uma's quarters, the weight of their newfound status pressed upon them. "I never imagined we'd become the face of human-Eliani relations," Donald sighed, sinking into a chair designed for Eliani physiology. Uma moved closer, her lithe form gliding across the room. "It's a heavy burden, but one we bear together." She reached out, her slender fingers intertwining with Donald's. Their eyes met, and the air between them crackled with unspoken desire. Donald pulled Uma closer, his heart racing as her alien yet familiar form pressed against him. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, breaking down the last barriers between them. As their intimacy deepened, they explored each other's bodies with curiosity and fervor. Donald marveled at the smooth, iridescent texture of Uma's skin, while she traced the contours of his muscular frame. Their union was a dance of discovery, each touch and caress revealing new sensations. However, as their passion reached its peak, they encountered unexpected challenges. Their physiological differences, once a source of fascination, now presented frustrating barriers. Despite their best efforts, full physical union remained elusive. Breathless and flushed, they pulled apart. Uma's eyes shimmered with a mix of desire and disappointment. "I didn't realize it would be so complicated," she whispered. Donald stroked her face gently. "We'll figure it out. This is just the beginning." As they lay intertwined, basking in the afterglow of their encounter, a notification chimed on Donald's communicator. He reluctantly disentangled himself from Uma's embrace to check the message. "There's a new wave of human immigrants arriving next week," Donald announced, his brow furrowing. "They're planning to establish a larger settlement to the east." Uma sat up, her expression concerned. "That area is sacred to many Eliani. This could cause tension." Donald nodded grimly. "I've been appointed as the chief liaison between the human settlers and the Eliani government. It looks like we have our work cut out for us." As they discussed the implications of this new development, neither could shake the feeling that their relationship was about to face its greatest test yet. The delicate balance between their personal lives and their responsibilities to their respective species hung in the balance, as did the future of human-Eliani relations on Zen 9. Outside, the alien sun of Zen 9 dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape. In the distance, a group of tamed Zen beasts lowed softly, a reminder of the progress made and the challenges yet to come. Donald and Uma stood at the window, hand in hand, watching as the first stars of evening appeared in the alien sky, each silently wondering what the future held for them and for the two species they had brought together. Together faced an uncertain future. Their contemplative moment was shattered by the urgent beeping of Donald's communicator. His face paled as he read the incoming message. "It's Uma," he said, his voice tight with worry. "She's been captured by the extremists." Donald's mind raced, weighing his options. The new human settlement's expansion was a pressing concern, but Uma's safety took precedence. Without her, the delicate balance between humans and Eliani could crumble. "I have to save her," Donald declared, already moving towards the door. "She's too important to our mission here." Within hours, Donald had assembled a small team of trusted operatives, both human and Eliani. As they prepared for the rescue mission, Donald sought out Dr. Marcus Chen, the colony's leading xenobiologist. "I need your help, Marcus," Donald explained, outlining the situation. Dr. Chen nodded gravely. "I have something that might help." He retrieved a sleek device from his lab. "This tracker can detect Eliani biosignatures. It should lead you straight to Uma." As Donald examined the device, Dr. Chen hesitated, then added, "There's something else you should know. My research into human Eliani compatibility has shown promising results. We might be closer to overcoming your physiological differences than we thought." Donald's heart skipped a beat, but he pushed the thought aside. Uma's rescue came first. The team set out under the cover of darkness, their hovercraft gliding silently over Zen 9's treacherous swamplands. The tracker led them to a hidden facility, its architecture a twisted fusion of Eliani and alien design. As they approached, Donald spotted several Zen beasts patrolling the perimeter. Something about their movement seemed off. "They've been modified," Donald whispered, observing their enhanced musculature and unnaturally aggressive behavior. "The extremists must have stolen our research." Using his expertise, Donald guided the team past the patrolling beasts. They infiltrated the facility, moving swiftly through dimly lit corridors. As they delved deeper, Donald uncovered disturbing evidence. Holographic displays showed communication logs with an unknown alien species, the Zorax. It was clear the extremists weren't working alone. Finally, they located Uma. She was weak but alive, her usually vibrant skin dull and lackluster. As Donald worked to free her from her restraints, she grabbed his arm urgently. "Donald," she rasped, "they're planning an attack on the human settlement. They've created an army of controlled Zen beasts." Donald's blood ran cold. He had to get Uma to safety, but he couldn't ignore this threat. "We need to split up," he decided. "Half the team will escort Uma back. The rest of us will gather more intel on this attack." As they made their escape, alarms blared through the facility. They were nearly at the exit when an imposing figure blocked their path. It was Vex, the extremist leader. "You dare interfere with our plans?" Vex snarled, his tentacles writhing with rage. Donald stepped forward, positioning himself between Vex and the others. "Your plans end here, Vex." What followed was a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Donald's human strength and agility gave him an edge, but Vex's knowledge of Eliani pressure points nearly turned the tide. Just as Vex had Donald pinned, Uma intervened. Despite her weakened state, Uma lunged for a nearby control panel. With a few quick keystrokes, she disabled the Zen Beast control device on Vex's belt. Chaos erupted as the facility's Zen Beasts broke free from their programming. In the confusion, Donald's team made their escape, Uma safely in tow. As they sped back towards the human settlement, Donald and Uma shared a moment of intense closeness. Their eyes met, volumes of unspoken emotion passing between them. But the moment was fleeting. They had a settlement to save. They arrived to find the attack already underway. Hordes of controlled Zen beasts descended upon the unprepared colonists. Donald took charge immediately, coordinating the defense efforts. Meanwhile, Uma collaborated with Dr. Chen to develop a countermeasure against the Zen beast control technology. They worked feverishly, acutely aware that every second counted. "We've got it," Uma announced, holding up a small device. "But it needs direct contact with each Zen beast to work." Donald knew what he had to do. "I'll deploy it," he said, already moving towards the fray. Uma grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Donald, it's too dangerous." He covered her hand with his own. "It has to be me. I'm the only one who can get close enough." Reluctantly, Uma nodded, handing him the device. Donald plunged into the chaos, using every ounce of his Zen beast handling skills to approach the rampaging creatures. He managed to deploy the device on several beasts, watching with satisfaction as they shook off the extremists' control. But the process was slow, and Donald soon found himself surrounded by increasingly aggressive Zen beasts. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, Uma appeared at his side. "Together," she said, her drive mirroring his own. Working in perfect synchronization, they moved through the horde. Uma's knowledge of Eliani biology enhanced the effectiveness of the disruption device, while Donald's taming techniques kept them safe from the Zen beast's attacks. Their united effort turned the tide of the battle. One by one, the Zen beasts broke free from the extremist control. Many turned on their former masters, driving back the attacking forces. As the last of the extremists fled, Donald and Uma stood amid the aftermath of the battle, exhausted but triumphant. They had saved the settlement and exposed the Zorax threat, uniting humans and Eliani against a common enemy. In the quiet moment that followed, Donald turned to Uma. Words seemed inadequate to express the depth of his feelings, but Uma understood. She reached out, intertwining her fingers with his. As the twin suns of Zen 9 rose on a new day, Donald and Uma faced the future together, their bond a symbol of hope for human-Eliani relations. But even as they basked in their victory, both knew that greater challenges lay ahead. The Zorax threat loomed on the horizon, and the path forward would require all of their courage, ingenuity, and the strength of their unconventional love. Love. Their shared experience had forged an unbreakable bond, one that would be tested in the days to come. As news of their heroic actions spread, Donald and Uma found themselves thrust into the spotlight. The Human-Eliani alliance, once fragile, now stood stronger than ever, with the couple serving as its living symbol. Crowds gathered to catch glimpses of them as they walked through the settlement, their intertwined hands a testament to the possibilities of cooperation between their species. "I never thought we'd become celebrities," Donald murmured as they made their way through a sea of admirers. Uma squeezed his hand, her iridescent skin shimmering under the alien sun. "It's a heavy responsibility, but one we must bear for the sake of our peoples." Their newfound status brought both opportunities and challenges. More humans and Eliani began to explore interspecies relationships, inspired by Donald and Uma's example. However, the increased scrutiny also meant that their every move was analyzed and dissected by both supporters and critics alike. One evening, as they retreated to their shared quarters, Dr. Marcus Chen requested an urgent meeting. The xenobiologist's eyes gleamed with excitement as he presented his findings. "I've made significant progress in my research on human-Eliani compatibility," he announced, holographic data swirling around him. "With your permission, I'd like to begin a series of treatments that could potentially overcome your physiological differences." Donald and Uma exchanged glances, a mix of hope and apprehension in their eyes. After a moment of silent communication, they nodded in agreement. "We'll do it," Donald said. "Not just for us, but for the future of human-Eliani relations." The treatments began immediately. Donald and Uma underwent a series of procedures, each more intense than the last. They endured discomfort and pain, their bodies slowly adapting to the changes induced by Dr. Chen's experimental techniques. As weeks passed, they noticed subtle shifts in their physiology. Uma's skin took on a warmer hue, while Donald's senses sharpened, allowing him to perceive the world in ways he never had before. Most strikingly, they found their empathic connection deepening, allowing them to sense each other's emotions with startling clarity. "I can feel your concern," Uma said one night, her hand resting on Donald's chest. "What troubles you?" Donald sighed, knowing he couldn't hide his thoughts from her. "The Zorax. Intelligence reports suggest they're planning something big. We need to be prepared." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication. Donald had been appointed to lead a new Zen Beast training program, aimed at creating a powerful deterrent against potential Zorax aggression. Uma, in turn, was tasked with heading a scientific division focused on reverse engineering recovered Zorax technology. As they immersed themselves in their new roles, the strain began to show. Donald spent long hours in the field, pushing himself and his trainees to their limits. Uma worked tirelessly in the lab, her brilliant mind racing to unlock the secrets of alien tech. Their efforts bore fruit. Donald's elite force of human and Eliani handlers demonstrated an unprecedented level of control over the Zen Beast. Uma's team made several breakthroughs, enhancing their defensive capabilities against potential Zorax attacks. However, their success came at a cost. The stress of their responsibilities, combined with the ongoing medical treatments, took its toll. Uma's health began to falter, her once vibrant skin dulling. Donald found himself grappling with the ethical implications of using Zen beasts as weapons, causing tension with more militant factions within the alliance. Their relationship strained under the pressure, culminating in a heated argument over the use of captured Zorax genetic modification technology. "We can't ignore this opportunity," Uma insisted, her eyes blazing. "It could be the key to solving our compatibility issues once and for all." Donald shook his head, his eyes hardened. "At what cost? We don't fully understand the implications. It's too risky." The disagreement left them both shaken. For the first time since their union, they decided to spend some time apart, each needing space to reflect on their future and the broader implications of their relationship. Donald threw himself into his work, pushing the boundaries of Zen Beast training. During a particularly intense session, he made a startling discovery. The creatures displayed a level of intelligence far beyond what they had previously believed possible, hinting at the potential for complex communication. Meanwhile, Uma sought solace in her research. As she delved deeper into Zorak's technology, she uncovered a potential weakness that could be exploited. However, the process of reverse engineering the alien tech had unexpected side effects, accelerating and altering the changes induced by Dr. Chen's treatments. As Donald and Uma grappled with their individual challenges, the colony's early warning systems blared to life. A Zorax fleet had been detected on the edge of the system, their intentions unmistakably hostile. In the face of this imminent threat, Donald and Uma realized the pettiness of their recent disagreements. They rushed to find each other, their enhanced empathic connection guiding them through the chaos of the colony's defensive preparations. They met in the central command center, their eyes locking across the room. Without a word, they moved towards each other, their hands clasping tightly. "I'm sorry," Donald began, but Uma shook her head. "No time for that now," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to combine our efforts if we're going to survive this." As alarms blared and colonists scrambled to their assigned positions, Donald and Uma stood united, ready to face the Zorax threat together. They knew that their bond, like the alliance between humans and Eliani, was complex and challenging, but ultimately necessary for the survival of both species. Donald turned to the assembled leaders, his voice steady and determined. "Here's what we're going to do." "Do." Donald's voice rang out clear and confident in the command center. He quickly outlined a strategy that combined their recent breakthroughs, integrating the advanced Zen Beast communication techniques with Uma's insights into Zorax technology. "We'll form an elite Zen Beast cavalry," he explained, gesturing to the holographic display. "Our riders will use Uma's findings to counteract Zorax weapons, while I'll lead them using the new communication methods we've developed." Uma nodded, her eyes gleaming with dedication. "I'll work with Dr. Chen to adapt the Zorax genetic modification technology. If we're successful, it could enhance the mental link between riders and Zen beasts." As the colony mobilized for the impending attack, Donald and Uma threw themselves into their respective tasks. Donald spent grueling hours on the training grounds, pushing both human and Eliani recruits to their limits. The air filled with the thunderous roars of Zen beasts and the shouts of their riders as they learned to work in perfect unison. Donald's unique ability to communicate with the creatures proved invaluable. He guided the riders through complex battle formations, teaching them to execute maneuvers that would have been impossible just weeks ago. "Feel the connection," Donald instructed a young Eliani rider struggling to direct her mount. "Don't force it. Let the bond flow naturally." Meanwhile, Uma worked tirelessly in the lab with Dr. Chen. They pored over Zorax genetic data, seeking a way to enhance human Eliani compatibility. The breakthrough came in the early hours of the morning, just as the first Zorax ships entered the system. "We've done it," Uma announced, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "The modifications not only advance our personal compatibility, but also strengthen the mental link between riders and Zen beasts." As alarms blared across the colony, Donald led his newly formed Zen Beast cavalry into battle. The sight of humans and Eliani riding the once-feared creatures into combat sent shockwaves through the Zorax forces. The enhanced mental link allowed riders and beasts to move as one, weaving through enemy fire with unprecedented agility. From the command center, Uma monitored the battle, her fingers flying over holographic controls as she guided the colony's defenses. Her intimate knowledge of Zorax technology allowed her to anticipate and counter their tactics, keeping the ground installations safe from bombardment. The battle raged for days, stretching the defenders to their limits. Donald's cavalry performed feats of bravery that would become legend, including a daring raid on a Zorax command ship. As they fought their way through the alien vessel, Donald and his team uncovered vital intelligence about the Zorax's long-term plans for the sector. "They see our alliance as a threat," Donald reported back to Uma. "That's why they've been so determined to disrupt it." As the tide of battle began to turn in their favor, disaster struck. Donald's squadron was ambushed by a Zorax elite unit, separating him from his mount. Forced into hand-to-hand combat with the Zorax commander, Donald found himself pushed to the brink of his enhanced abilities. Uma, sensing Donald's peril through their empathic link, made a split-second decision. Despite the risks, she left the safety of the command center and took control of a Zen beast. Using the mental link technology, she guided the creature through the chaos of battle to Donald's location. Her arrival turned the tide of the skirmish. Working in perfect synchronization, Donald and Uma overwhelmed the Zorax commander. As the alien leader fell, the remaining Zorax forces broke ranks and retreated, leaving behind a wealth of advanced technology. In the aftermath of their victory, Donald and Uma found themselves hailed as heroes. However, the intense strain of the battle had taken its toll. As they recovered in the medical bay, Dr. Chen discovered that the genetic modifications had accelerated in unpredictable ways. "Your physiologies are converging," he explained, his voice a mix of concern and scientific fascination. "The changes are more profound than we anticipated." Before they could fully process this news, an urgent summons arrived. The human Ileani leadership had called an emergency meeting to discuss the implications of their victory and the future of Zen 9. As they made their way to the council chambers, Donald and Uma exchanged a look of shared understanding. Their journey of discovery, both personal and scientific, was just getting started. The challenges ahead would test not only their relationship, but the very foundations of human Ileani cooperation. The doors to the council chamber slid open, revealing a room filled with the colony's most influential leaders. All eyes turned to Donald and Uma as they entered, the weight of expectation heavy on their shoulders. Whatever came next would shape the future of both their species and their home on Zen 9. Zen 9. The air in the council chamber was thick with tension as Donald and Uma took their seats at the center of the room. Representatives from both human and Ileani factions sat in a semicircle before them, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. "We've called this meeting to discuss the implications of recent events," began Councillor Vex, an imposing Ileani with iridescent skin. "The victory against the Zorax has demonstrated the potential of our alliance, but it has also raised new questions." Donald leaned forward, his enhanced senses picking up the subtle shifts in body language around the room. "What kind of questions, Counselor?" Dr. Chen stepped forward, holographic data swirling around him. "The physiological changes you and Uma have undergone are unprecedented. We believe they could be the key to furthering integration between our species." Uma's eyes widened, her mind racing with the possibilities. "You want to expand the program?" "Precisely," Dr. Chen nodded. "We propose an initiative to refine and improve the compatibility treatments, using you two as primary test subjects." The room erupted into a flurry of whispers and exclamations. Donald felt Uma's hand tighten around his, their empathic link thrumming with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "This is a monumental decision," Donald said, his voice cutting through the chatter. "What are the risks?" Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. "The treatments will be intense, potentially accelerating the convergence of your physiologies. We can't predict all the outcomes, but the potential benefits to both our species are significant." Uma stood, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We'll do it, for the future of our alliance and Zen 9. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Donald and Uma found themselves at the center of a rigorous medical program, undergoing a series of procedures that pushed their bodies to the limit. The pain was intense, but with each treatment, they felt themselves changing, growing stronger. Donald's muscles became denser, his reflexes sharper. He could hear conversations from across the room, pick up scents that were previously imperceptible. Uma's skin took on a subtle luminescence, her body adapting to Zen 9's harsh environment with remarkable efficiency. But it was their empathic connection that underwent the most profound transformation. As they lay in adjacent medical pods, their minds reached out to each other, forming a bond that transcended physical touch. "I can feel your thoughts," Uma whispered one night, her voice filled with wonder. "Not just emotions, but actual words." Donald nodded, equally amazed. "It's like we're becoming one being." Their success sparked a wave of volunteers eager to undergo similar procedures. A new class of human Ileani hybrids began to emerge, dubbed Zenorians by the colony's media. Donald and Uma found themselves thrust into leadership roles, guiding and supporting those undergoing the transformation. Meanwhile, the Zen Beast cavalry continued to evolve under Donald's command. He implemented new training protocols that leveraged the enhanced mental link between riders and beasts. Uma's expertise in Zorax technology led to the development of advanced armor and weapon systems, turning the cavalry into a formidable fighting force. Their progress didn't go unnoticed. Word spread through the sector, attracting the attention of the Galactic Confederation. A delegation arrived on Zen 9, their massive ship casting a shadow over the colony as it descended. Donald and Uma stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee, their appearance drawing curious looks from the alien diplomats. The lead representative, a towering being with crystalline skin, stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Xylith of the Galactic Confederation," it announced, its voice resonating in their minds. "We've come to assess the situation on Zen 9. Your rapid advancements have concerned some members of our organization." Uma stepped forward, her newly acquired diplomatic skills coming to the fore. "We welcome the Confederation's interest, Ambassador. We hope to demonstrate that our advancements pose no threat to galactic stability." The negotiations that followed were intense. Donald and Uma found themselves in marathon sessions, explaining the intricacies of the Xenorian program and the Zen Beast cavalry. They faced probing questions and thinly veiled accusations of militarization. "The Zen Beast cavalry is a defensive force," Donald explained during one particularly heated exchange. "Its purpose is to protect Zen 9 and maintain peace in this sector." Ambassador Xylith's crystalline form shimmered with skepticism. "A force that can overwhelm Zorax battleships is more than just defensive, Commander Hawthorne." The diplomatic dance was abruptly interrupted by a priority alert from the colony's long-range sensors. Uma's face paled as she read the report. "Zorax activity detected at the edge of the system," she announced, her voice tight. "Intelligence suggests they're amassing for another attack." The news sent shockwaves through the negotiations. The Confederation representatives huddled together, their translucent bodies pulsing with agitation. Donald and Uma exchanged a look, their empathic link buzzing with shared commitment. As the colony mobilized for potential conflict, Dr. Chen approached them with a radical proposal. "I believe we can take the Xenorian program to the next level," he said, his eyes gleaming with scientific fervor. "By incorporating modified Zorax genetic technology, we could create a more perfect blend of human and Eliani DNA. The potential is extraordinary." Donald felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. "What are the risks?" "Substantial," Dr. Chen admitted. "This procedure would irreversibly alter your genetic makeup. The outcome is impossible to predict with certainty." Uma's mind raced with the implications. How long would it take? "The initial phase would require several hours of intense genetic manipulation," Dr. Chen explained, "but the full effects would manifest over days, perhaps weeks." Their deliberations were cut short by the blaring of alarms. A massive Zorax fleet had appeared at the edge of the system, dwarfing their previous incursion. The Confederation ship launched into orbit, its powerful sensors scanning the approaching armada. Donald and Uma stood in the control room, watching as the Zorax fleet inexorably approached. The weight of their decision pressed down on them, the fate of Zen 9 hanging in the balance. "We have to do it," Uma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "For Zen 9, for our future." Donald nodded, squeezing her hand. Together. They made their way to the medical facility, the colony around them a hive of frantic activity. As they entered the gene modification chamber, the alarms grew louder, announcing the Zorax fleet's approach. Dr. Chen's team worked with practiced efficiency, prepping them for the procedure. As Donald and Uma lay down on the medical beds, their eyes met, a lifetime of shared experiences passing between them in an instant. The chamber hummed to life, bathing them in a soft blue glow. As the genetic alteration process began, Donald and Uma's minds filled with uncertainty about their future and the looming battle that awaited them. The fate of Zen 9, and perhaps the entire sector, rested on the success of this desperate gamble. As the genetic manipulation process began, Donald and Uma's bodies were engulfed in a soft blue glow. The hum of machinery filled the chamber, punctuated by the distant wail of alarms warning of the approaching Zorax fleet. Suddenly, a wave of sensation washed over them. Donald's muscles tensed and relaxed rapidly, while Uma's skin prickled with an intense tingling sensation. Their vision blurred, replaced by a kaleidoscope of vivid colors and abstract patterns. "What's happening?" Donald managed to gasp, his voice sounding strange and distorted to his own ears. Dr. Chen's face swam into view, concern etched on his features. "The process is more intense than we anticipated. Your bodies are undergoing rapid changes at the cellular level." Uma's mind raced, processing information at an unprecedented speed. She could sense every minute detail of the room, from the subtle vibrations of the medical equipment to the individual strands of Dr. Chen's hair. Their shared hallucinations intensified. Donald found himself running through an alien forest, his body moving with impossible grace and speed. Uma floated in a sea of data, complex equations and battle strategies swirling around her. A sudden commotion outside the chamber snapped them back to reality. Dr. Chen was speaking urgently with a member of the Defense Command. "The Zorax have launched a preliminary attack," he informed them, his voice tight with tension. "They're targeting the Zen Beast Cavalry's main base." Donald immediately tried to sit up, his newly enhanced muscles rippling under his skin. "We need to get out there." "The procedure isn't complete," Dr. Chen protested. "We don't know how your bodies will react under stress." Uma's eyes, now shimmering with an otherworldly light, locked onto the doctor's. "We don't have a choice. Zen 9 needs us." Reluctantly, Dr. Chen helped them disconnect from the medical equipment. As they stood, Donald and Uma marveled at their transformed bodies. Donald's skin had taken on a subtle iridescent sheen, reminiscent of Eliani physiology. Uma's frame had become more robust, her bones and muscles reinforced to match human endurance. They rushed to the armory, where they donned their combat gear. Donald's enhanced senses picked up the scent of ozone and burnt metal in the air, while Uma's sharpened intellect was already formulating complex battle strategies. As they reached the hangar bay, Donald felt a strange connection to the Zen beasts waiting there. Without conscious thought, he reached out with his mind, feeling the creature's presence. To his amazement, an entire herd responded, their minds linking with his in a complex network. Uma, meanwhile, found herself instinctively interfacing with the nearby Eliani technology. Information flowed directly into her mind, bypassing traditional displays and readouts. "Donald," she said, her voice filled with awe, "I think I can coordinate our entire defense network from here." He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "And I can control the Zen beasts like never before. Let's use these new abilities to our advantage." They split up, Donald mounting a Zen beast to lead the cavalry, while Uma set up in a mobile command center. As they moved into position, the full might of the Zorax assault became clear. Thousands of enemy ships filled the sky, their weapons raining destruction on Zen 9's outer defenses. Donald's voice rang out across the mental link he shared with the Zen beast riders. "Form up! We'll hit their flank and disrupt their formation." The cavalry moved as one, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible just hours before. Donald felt a surge of primal energy coursing through him, his consciousness melding with that of his mount. They weaved through enemy fire, striking with devastating precision. In the command center, Uma's mind raced, processing vast amounts of data in seconds. She coordinated the ground forces, air support, and orbital defenses with uncanny efficiency. Her enhanced intellect allowed her to predict Zorax tactics and counter them before they fully developed. "Donald," she called out through their newly formed telepathic link, "I'm detecting a weak point in their left flank. If you strike now, we can break their lines." He acknowledged, directing his forces to the designated area. The Zen Beast Cavalry smashed through the Zorax defenses, scattering their formations and creating chaos in their ranks. As the battle raged on, Donald and Uma began to feel the strain of their partially altered bodies. Donald experienced moments of uncontrollable rage, his human consciousness struggling against a tide of animal instinct. During one such episode, he charged recklessly into a group of Zorax fighters, narrowly escaping destruction. Uma, meanwhile, found herself overwhelmed by sensory input. The constant stream of data threatened to overload her mind, causing moments of disorientation that could have proved disastrous if not for her iron will. Just as it seemed they might turn the tide, A massive ship emerged from the Zorax fleet. Its size dwarfed anything they had encountered before, and strange energy readings emanated from its core. "Uma, are you seeing this?" Donald asked, his voice tinged with worry. "Yes," she replied, her enhanced mind already analyzing the threat. "It's some kind of superweapon. If my calculations are correct, it has the power to render Zen 9 uninhabitable." They watched in horror as the ship began to power up, its massive form glowing with ominous energy. Donald and Uma exchanged a look through their telepathic link, understanding passing between them without words. Their conventional tactics wouldn't be enough to stop this new threat. "We need to get on that ship," Donald said, his voice filled with commitment. Uma nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. "I think I can use some of the Zorax tech we've salvaged to mask our approach, but we'll need to move fast." Donald reached out with his mind, calling to a group of flying Zen beasts. As the creatures approached, he and Uma mounted the largest one, its wingspan easily triple that of its landbound cousins. As they took to the sky, Uma activated the cloaking device she had hastily assembled. The air around them shimmered, bending light to conceal their presence. They soared towards the Zorax superweapon, the fate of Zen 9 resting on their shoulders. As they neared the massive ship, Donald and Uma felt a strange pressure building in their bodies. The superweapon's defensive field interacted with their partially altered physiology, causing waves of intense pain to wash over them. Their forms began to shift and change, the genetic modifications accelerating in response to the unknown energy. Fighting through the agony, they pressed on. The future of Zen 9 and perhaps the entire sector depended on their success. As they approached the hull of the Zorax superweapon, Donald and Uma steeled themselves for the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that the real test of their new abilities was about to begin. The hull of the Zorax superweapon loomed before them, a vast expanse of alien metal crackling with energy. Donald gritted his teeth against the pain of his rapidly changing body. "We need to find a way in," he managed to say, his voice strained. Uma's eyes, now glowing with an otherworldly light, scanned the surface of the ship. "There," she pointed, her enhanced vision picking out a small access hatch. "I can interface with the lock mechanism." They guided their Zen beast mount towards the hatch. As they approached, Uma reached out, her fingers elongating and splitting into tendrils that connected with the alien technology. Her mind raced through encryption protocols, breaking through layer after layer of security. With a hiss, the hatch slid open. Donald and Uma slipped inside, their altered bodies allowing them to move with preternatural grace in the low gravity of the ship's interior. The corridors pulsed with an eerie biomechanical energy. Donald's heightened senses picked up the acrid smell of Zorax pheromones, while Uma's enhanced mind processed the complex data streams flowing through the ship's systems. They moved swiftly towards the core, guided by Uma's intuitive understanding of the ship's layout. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a squad of Zorax soldiers. Without hesitation, Donald leaped into action. His new hybrid physiology allowed him to move faster than the eye could follow. He dispatched the Zorax with a series of precise strikes, his body morphing to adapt to each new threat. Uma, meanwhile, interfaced directly with the ship's defense systems, shutting down alarms and redirecting patrols away from their position. They reached the central chamber, where the superweapon's core thrummed with destructive potential. Uma's eyes widened as she took in the complexity of the device. "I can shut it down," she said, her voice filled with certainty, "but it will take time." Donald nodded, taking up a defensive position. "Do it. I'll hold them off." Uma connected to the core, her mind diving deep into its intricate workings. Donald stood guard, his body coiled and ready for action. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The ship shuddered around them as the battle outside raged on. Donald fought off wave after wave of Zorax soldiers, his hybrid form allowing him to match their alien strength and agility. Just as Uma was about to complete the shutdown sequence, a massive explosion rocked the ship. The chamber filled with acrid smoke, and alarms blared from every direction. "We have to go!" Donald shouted, grabbing Uma and pulling her away from the core. They ran through the corridors, the ship breaking apart around them. They reached the hatch where they had entered, only to find it sealed shut. Donald's eyes met Uma's, a lifetime of trust and understanding passing between them. Without a word, they turned and sprinted towards the nearest viewport. Donald's fist, now covered in a hard chitinous material, smashed through the transparent barrier. The vacuum of space pulled at them, threatening to tear them apart. In that moment, their bodies underwent a final, dramatic change. Their skin hardened, forming a protective layer against the cold of space. Membranes grew between their fingers and toes, allowing them to propel themselves through the void. They leaped from the disintegrating Zorax ship, their transformed bodies carrying them through space towards the distant safety of Zen 9. As they flew, Donald and Uma marveled at their new forms. They were no longer fully human, nor were they Eliani or Zen Beast. They had become something entirely new, a perfect blend of all three species. They landed on the outskirts of the main colony, their arrival causing a stir among the defenders. Dr. Chen rushed to meet them, his eyes wide with a mixture of concern and scientific curiosity. "We need to get you to the medical bay immediately," he said, ushering them towards the facility. As they walked, Donald and Uma became aware of the stares and whispers following them. Their appearance had changed dramatically. Donald's skin now had a subtle iridescent sheen, while Uma's frame had become more robust and powerful. In the medical bay, Dr. Chen and his team ran a battery of tests, marveling at the extent of the changes Donald and Uma had undergone. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Chen muttered, reviewing the results. "Your DNA has been completely rewritten. You're not just human anymore, nor are you Eleni or Zen Beast. You're something new entirely." Donald flexed his hand, watching as it morphed seamlessly between human and beast-like forms. "What does this mean for us? For Zen 9? Dr. Chen shook his head, his expression a mixture of excitement and concern. "I'm not sure, but I believe this could change everything. The potential applications of this transformation are staggering." As they discussed the implications of their changes, an urgent message came through from the colony's leadership. The Zorax threat had been neutralized for now, but the Galactic Confederation was demanding an immediate explanation for the unprecedented display of power from Zen 9. Donald and Uma exchanged a look, realizing that their transformation had catapulted them into the center of a political storm. They would need to navigate not only their new physical reality, but also the complex interstellar politics that their actions had set in motion. As they prepared to meet with the colony's leaders, Donald felt a strange sensation, a distant calling from the Zen beasts across the planet. He realized he could sense their presence, their thoughts, as if they were extensions of his own consciousness. Uma, meanwhile, found her mind effortlessly interfacing with the colony's advanced systems, processing vast amounts of data in seconds. They stepped out of the medical bay, ready to face the challenges ahead. The future of Zen 9, and perhaps the entire sector, had been irrevocably changed by their transformation. As they walked towards the command center, Donald and Uma knew that their journey was just the beginning. It was in many ways just beginning. The beginning of a new chapter in their lives and the future of Zen 9. In the weeks following their transformation, Donald and Uma found themselves at the center of intense scrutiny from both the scientific community and the Galactic Confederation. Their unique hybrid physiology represented a breakthrough that could reshape the future of interspecies relations. As they adapted to their new abilities, Dr. Chen approached them with a proposition. "We've identified a Zorax outpost that could hold crucial information about their plans," he explained, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Your enhanced capabilities make you the perfect candidates for this mission." Donald and Uma exchanged a glance, their telepathic link buzzing with shared thoughts. They knew the risks, but also understood the potential impact of such a mission. "We'll do it," Donald said, his voice resonating with newfound strength. The journey to the Zorax outpost was fraught with tension. As their ship approached the massive space station orbiting a swirling gas giant, Donald felt a familiar tingle at the base of his skull. His connection to the Zen beast had expanded, allowing him to sense the movements of living beings, even at this distance. "I can feel them," he whispered to Uma. "The Zorax, they're everywhere in the station." Uma nodded, her eyes glowing as she interfaced with the ship's systems. "I'm detecting multiple security layers, but I think I can bypass them." As they docked with the station, Donald and Uma's bodies shimmered, adapting to the new environment. Their skin took on a chameleon-like quality, blending seamlessly with their surroundings. They moved through the station's corridors with preternatural grace, Donald's enhanced senses guiding them away from patrolling Zorax guards. Uma's fingers danced over control panels, her mind diving deep into the station's network. "Donald," she whispered, her voice tight with shock. "You need to see this." He peered over her shoulder at the data streaming across the screen. His eyes widened as he processed the information. "This can't be right," he muttered. The files revealed a truth that shook them to their core. The Zorax were not a natural species, but bioengineered creations designed for conquest by an extinct race known as the Precursors. As they delved deeper into the station, they encountered an unexpected ally. A Zorax scientist named Zelkora approached them, her movements cautious but her eyes filled with curiosity. "You're not Zorax," she said, her voice a low hiss. "Yet you're not like any species I've encountered before." Donald tensed, ready for a fight, but Uma placed a calming hand on his arm. She sensed something in Zelkora's demeanor, a weariness, a desire for change. "We're here to understand," Uma said softly, "and perhaps to offer a new path." Zelkora's eyes widened. "There are those among us who question our purpose," she admitted, "who seek to break free from our engineered compulsion for conquest." With Zelkora's help, they gained access to the Central Command Center. There, they witnessed the Zorax High Command planning a massive assault on key worlds in the sector, including Zen 9. Donald's body tensed, his muscles rippling with barely held back energy. "We can't let this happen," he growled. Uma's mind raced, processing the information at incredible speeds. "We need to act now," she said. "We can use the station's communication array to broadcast the truth about the Zorax origins." As Uma interfaced with the system, her consciousness expanding through the station's network, Donald stood guard. His body shifted, adapting to each new threat as waves of Zorax guards attempted to stop them. The station erupted into chaos as the truth spread. Zorax soldiers turned on each other, some refusing to believe, others embracing the revelation. In the midst of the confusion, Donald and Uma seized the opportunity to address the Zorax leadership directly. They proposed a radical solution: to use the hybridization technology developed on Zen 9 to help the Zorax evolve beyond their engineered limitations. The offer created a schism among the Zorax. Some saw it as a chance for redemption, while others viewed it as a threat to their very existence. As negotiations began, the station shuddered under the assault of extremist factions. A group of hardline Zorax launched an attack on the command center, while simultaneously, anti-hybridization terrorists from Zen 9 arrived, having tracked Donald and Uma's team. The command center became a battleground. Donald's hybrid form allowed him to match the Zorax in strength and agility, while Uma's enhanced intellect guided their team's movements with tactical precision. In the heat of battle, Uma's mind connected with the station's systems on a deeper level than ever before. She guided Donald to a critical junction in the power grid, where his unique connection with Zen beasts allowed him to interface with the station's bioorganic components. Together, they emitted an energy pulse that incapacitated the hostile forces without causing permanent harm. The fighting ceased, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. In the aftermath, Donald and Uma found themselves at the center of a historic moment. The Zorax leadership, impressed by their abilities and moved by the offer of a new path, agreed to a ceasefire and opened diplomatic channels with Zen 9 and the Galactic Confederation. As the immediate crisis subsided, Donald and Uma's thoughts turned to the future. They began to discuss the possibility of establishing a new colony, a haven for hybridized individuals, and a center for further research into controlled evolution. Their plans were interrupted by an urgent message from Dr. Chen on Zen 9. Uma's hand trembled as she read the contents, her eyes wide with surprise. "Donald," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, we're going to have a child." The news hit them like a shockwave. Their child would be the first naturally born member of their new hybrid species, a perfect blend of human, Eliani, and Zen beast DNA. As they prepared to return to Zen 9, Donald and Uma embraced, their bodies glowing with bioluminescent patterns that reflected their shared emotions. They boarded their ship, ready to face the challenges and opportunities that awaited them, knowing that their journey was a long way to go. The ship's engines hummed to life, carrying them back towards Zen 9 and the uncertain future that lay ahead. As the Zorak station receded into the distance, Donald and Uma's minds were filled with thoughts of the monumental task before them, brokering a lasting peace, establishing a new colony, and preparing for the arrival of a child who would embody the future of interspecies relations. Relations would reshape the future of the entire sector. As their ship entered Zen 9's atmosphere, Donald and Uma's anticipation grew. They were eager to share their discoveries and begin the next phase of their work. Suddenly, the ship's communication system crackled to life. Dr. Chen's voice came through, urgent and strained. "Donald, Uma, we need you at the research facility immediately. There's been an unexpected development with Uma's pregnancy." Uma's hand instinctively moved to her abdomen, her eyes widening with concern. Donald reached for her, their shared telepathic link buzzing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. As they touched down on the landing pad, they were met with a cacophony of noise. A crowd had gathered, their faces a mix of awe and suspicion. Supporters cheered, waving banners celebrating the heroes of Zen 9. But among them, angry protesters shouted and brandished signs decrying the unnatural hybridization program. Donald's enhanced senses picked up the hostility simmering beneath the surface. He placed a protective arm around Uma as they made their way towards the facility entrance. Their Zen beast escorts, sensing Donald's unease through their psychic link, moved closer, forming a living barrier between the couple and the crowd. Suddenly, a group of figures broke from the throng, their faces contorted with rage. "Abominations!" one of them screamed, lunging towards Uma with a makeshift weapon. Donald's body reacted instantaneously. His form shifted, skin hardening into an impenetrable shell as he shielded Uma from the attack. The weapon glanced harmlessly off his armored back. The Zen beast roared, their massive forms creating a protective circle around the couple. Security forces rushed in, quickly subduing the attackers. As the commotion died down, Donald and Uma hurried into the facility, their hearts racing. Inside, Dr. Chen greeted them with a mix of relief and concern. "Thank goodness you're here," he said, leading them to a secure medical bay. "Uma, your pregnancy is progressing at an unprecedented rate. The fetus's genetic makeup is extraordinary." Uma lay on the examination table as Dr. Chen activated a holographic display. The image showed a rapidly developing fetus, its DNA visibly shifting and adapting in real time. "The child is evolving constantly," Dr. Chen explained, his voice filled with awe. "Its genetic structure is incorporating elements from all three species, human, Eleni, and Zen beast, but it's also developing entirely new genetic sequences we've never seen before." Donald watched the display, mesmerized by the swirling patterns of DNA. Through his connection to the Zen beasts, he felt a faint echo of another consciousness, small but growing stronger by the moment. Dr. Chen's voice cut through his reverie. "We need to stabilize the pregnancy. I recommend placing Uma in a specially designed stasis pod. It will allow us to monitor the baby's development and ensure both mother and child remain healthy throughout this accelerated gestation." Uma nodded, her face a mixture of dedication and fear. As the medical team prepared the stasis pod, she turned to Donald, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I'm scared," she whispered, "but I'm also excited. Our child, it's going to change everything, isn't it?" Donald took her hand, their bioluminescent patterns synchronizing. "Whatever happens, we're in this together," he assured her. As Uma was placed in the stasis pod, Donald felt a surge of protectiveness. He stayed by her side, watching as the pod's systems came online, bathing Uma in a soft, pulsating light. Days turned into weeks, and Donald rarely left the medical bay. He found that as the pregnancy progressed, his connection to their unborn child grew stronger. He could sense its emotions, flashes of rudimentary thoughts, and an overwhelming curiosity about the world beyond. One day, as Donald sat beside the stasis pod, communicating silently with his child, an alarm blared through the facility. Dr. Chen burst into the room, his face pale with worry. "Donald, we have a situation," he said breathlessly. "The Zen beasts across the planet, they're behaving erratically. Our sensors are picking up massive fluctuations in the planet's ecosystem. It's as if the entire biosphere is destabilizing." Donald's mind raced, connecting the dots. He placed his hand on the stasis pod, feeling the energy pulsing within. It's the baby, he realized. It's rapidly evolving DNA. It's resonating with the Zen beasts, causing a cascade effect throughout the planet's fauna. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. If this continues, it could lead to ecological collapse. We need to find a way to stabilize the system, and fast. Donald closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind to the Zen beasts across the planet. He felt their confusion, their fear, as their bodies and instincts changed in response to the unborn child's influence. In that moment, Donald knew what he had to do. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "I can create a link," he said, his voice steady with commitment. "A planet-wide network, connecting every Zen beast to myself, and through me, to our child. It might stabilize the ecosystem." Dr. Chen looked alarmed. "The strain on your system would be enormous. Are you sure?" But Donald had already begun. His body glowed with intense bioluminescence as he extended his consciousness across Zen 9. One by one, he felt the minds of countless Zen beasts joining the network, their chaotic energies slowly aligning, stabilizing. The effort was immense. Donald's body trembled, sweat beading on his forehead as he struggled to maintain the connection. Through it all, he kept one hand on Uma's stasis pod, anchoring himself to her and their child. As Donald fought to keep the planet-wide network stable, Uma's vital signs began to fluctuate. The stasis pod's alarms blared, and Dr. Chen rushed to the controls. "She's going into labor," he announced, his voice tense with concentration. "Donald, we need to bring her out of stasis now." Donald nodded, unable to speak as he poured all his energy into maintaining the fragile balance he had created. As the stasis pod opened and Uma's eyes fluttered open, the first contractions hit her. Uma's cries of pain mingled with the low hum of the medical equipment as Dr. Chen and his team prepared for the birth. Donald stood by her side, one hand clasped in hers, the other still maintaining contact with the pod, his mind stretched to its limits as he held the planet's ecosystem together. "You can do this," Donald whispered to Uma, his voice strained but filled with love and encouragement. "Our child is coming. Our future is about to begin." Uma nodded, her face contorted with effort, as another contraction washed over her, the room filled with a palpable energy, the air itself seeming to vibrate with the momentous event unfolding. As Uma pushed, Donald felt the network of Zen beasts pulse in response. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the arrival of the child who would change everything.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.